Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Fascina el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin ti naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Hey, maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Mr. Perez is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants here. Those are the Lapa Lapa, Puerto Vallarta's oldest restaurant on the famous Los Muertos beach, and the El Dorado Restaurant and Beach Club right next door. So you can enjoy that fantastic view of the Los Muertos Pier all lit up at night in beautiful colors, or during the day in its grand splendor for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week, I have a wonderful guest for you, and you're going to really love her. She's Astrid Van Dam, and she owns and operates a tour transportation company, and it's called Superior Tours Vallarta. But before we get to Astrid, let's see what's happening this week in Puerto Vallarta, the 13th of September, 2018. Independence Day celebrations are coming up. In fact, they're on their way. They're happening right now. Let's get out and let's find out what's planned. Today, the 13th, in Pitiala Square at 9 a.m., there was a celebration of the Niños Héroes, the defenders of the castle of Chapultepec. You know what? One day, I'm going to tell you guys about my visit to Chapultepec Castle when I was going to school in Mexico City. Oh, man. What a story that is. Remind me. I'll get to it one time soon. Anyway, we missed this particular celebration, boys and girls, you guys. So let's just move on, shall we? Anyway, that's it for today, and tomorrow, the 14th, there is going to be a very great thing happening. It's National Charo Day Parade, and you're not going to want to miss this. It's beautiful horses with horsemen and elegant horsewomen all dressed up in their finest, in their great Charo outfits. It's going to start at Lazaro Cardenas Park, and it's going to head down Morelos to the Malecon and on upward, and starts at 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, the 14th. Then things really start heating up on Saturday with the Civic Act and formal sitting to commemorate the Cry of Dolores in 1810, and the first time that the Mexican national anthem was sung. And that takes place at 8 o'clock in the morning in the main square next to City Hall. So get up early for that. Then there's going to be volleyball and basketball tournaments around the town. And then at 8 o'clock in the evening, the mariachis break out in the main square, followed by folkloric ballet at 9. Then they're going to be followed by the municipal band putting on a concert until 11. When the interim mayor of Puerto Vallarta will reenact the Shout of Independence from the president's balcony in the main square. And then at 11:30, more mariachis for an hour. And then the musical group Ritmos Dinamicos takes the stage in the main square at 12:30. And then they close out the evening celebration. Let's see, then the morning of the 16th on Independence Day, there'll be another civic act commemorating the actual day itself. Finally got there, didn't we? Anyway, a civic act. What is a civic act? It means that they drag out the big guns, like, the city officials, the police. Sometimes they bring out some military, local tourist cops. Sometimes they have school kids, and they make proclamations. And that's what they mean when they talk about a civic act. It's kind of neat. They got, like I said, they got a band out there usually. And then later on, they're going to have more volleyball and more basketball, and they're going to have even a mountain biking tournament thrown in for good measure all around town. And then at 10 in the morning, the military gets into the action with a parade down Morelos. So fun times to be had in Puerto Vallarta. And remember that there's going to be, there's bound to be fireworks happening. So, don't forget, that's going to probably be happening, right there at around midnight or 11:30 or 11 o'clock or whenever they want to, because that's how they do it here in Mexico. So what is this day all about? Now, this is just a review because we talked about this last year, right? But the Dia de la Independencia is a Mexican holiday celebrating the cry of independence on September the 16th, 1810, which started a revolt against the Spaniards and Spanish rule in Mexico. It celebrates the day that Miguel Hidalgo, Father Hidalgo, is believed to have made the cry of independence, known in Spanish as El Grito de la Independencia, in the town of Dolores in the north-central part of the Mexican state of Guanajuato. Hidalgo, a Catholic priest, was one of the nation's leaders during the War of Independence in Mexico. Now, there is no scholarly agreement as to what exactly was said by Hidalgo, but his speech, also known as the Cry of Dolores, El Grito de la Dolores, was made on September 16th, 1810, to motivate people to revolt against the Spanish regime. Hidalgo's army fought against the Spanish soldiers in the fight for independence, but he was captured and executed on July the 30th, 1811. Mexico's independence was not declared until September 28th, 1821. So, those are your times and dates for the events that are coming up this week. And they're in my show notes for this episode. So if you're in town, come on down and check it out. Now in Puerto Vallarta, there's a tiny street called Iturbide. It goes from the Malecon at the seahorse sculpture, and then it goes past the north side of City Hall. The same street actually that's actually like a walkway in one spot or another, known as the Umbrella Street, because it has, you guessed it, umbrellas, these colorful umbrellas that are suspended above. Same street as a cool little place we've talked about a couple of times, little hole in the wall called La Tostaderia. Anyway, and then it becomes a staircase, it goes up, and then it becomes a street, and it goes all the way past Miramar, up the hill, all the way to Emiliano Carranza. And on one of my trips to Vallarta, I asked this taxi driver, "What's an Iturbide?" So he wasn't sure. He said maybe it's a politician. They name all the streets after politicians here. So this week, I thought that I'd tell you a little bit about the first emperor of Mexico, Agustin Iturbide. Now, remember last week I promised I would tell you about the story of the patriotic dish chilies en nogada? I told you it was a little intricate. Well, this is just the beginning, folks. Let's read from the wiki pages. Now, chilies en nogada is a dish traditionally served at room temperature with cold cream sauce from Mexican cuisine. The name comes from the Spanish word for the nut tree nogal. It consists of poblano chilies filled with picadillo, which is a mixture usually containing shredded meat, aromatics, fruits, and spices, and then topped with a walnut-based cream sauce called nogada, and pomegranate seeds, giving it the three colors of the Mexican flag: green from the chili, white from the nut sauce, and red from the pomegranate. The traditional chili en nogada is from Puebla. It is tied to the independence of this country since it is said that they were prepared for the first time to entertain the future emperor, Agustin de Iturbide, when he came to the city after the signing of the Treaty of Cordoba. Now, remember that. Remember that. We talked about that right now, the signing of the Treaty of Cordoba. And of course, it continues to say that this dish is a source of pride for the inhabitants of the state of Puebla. I have a link to this information in the wiki pages, so you can check that out in my show notes. So who was Agustin Iturbide? He came from a wealthy family of Spanish Basque gentry. Born in Morelia in the state of Michoacan in September 27th, 1783. He was a fine horseman, and in his teens he entered the army, loyal to Spain. He was commissioned and then promoted to first lieutenant. And they say that he was a horseman without fear, which earned him the name of the Iron Dragon. When the War for Independence broke out, Iturbide was asked by Father Miguel Hidalgo y Castillo to join the insurgents and become a general. But he thought the rebels were ill-trained and were committing atrocities upon the Spanish civilians, so he chose to fight with the royalists, with the Spanish. And he was pretty good at beating back the insurgent forces. He, along with the loyalist forces, chased the rebels, Morelos included, and then finally captured and executed him in 1815. But in his diary, Iturbide refers to the rebels as perverse, bandits, and sacrilegious, while in a letter to the viceroy in 1814, he wrote of how he had 300 rebels, to whom he referred to as excommunicates, executed to celebrate Good Friday. Well, in not too long after that, he was accused of being cruel and taking advantage of enriching himself. And so he was relieved of his duty, but nearly a year later, he was asked to take his job back because they needed some help in ridding Mexico of the remainder of the insurgents. The Spanish needed his help. So he took the job back, but in the back of his mind, I'm sure that, and he wrote about how he always remembered how he was forced to lose face when he was relieved of his duties. And then something really weird happened. If you think about this plan that I'm going to talk to you about, you would think, this is ludicrous, but it happened. He was sent south to pursue Guerrero, the remaining rebel insurgent down there, and a couple things happened. Now, first of all, in Spain in 1820, there was an event that put the Bourbon dynasty at risk. Now, I'm not going to get too involved in this dynasty thing and what was going on in Europe, but, you know, these Bourbons, these families, these royal families that were just so incestuous and so crazy. Anyway, this was one of them, the Bourbons, right? And Iturbide was, his whole family was intertwined with the Bourbons. And what happened was, in Spain, there was a revolt that resulted in the establishment of a constitutional monarchy, which limited the powers of Ferdinand VII of Spain. Now, this got Iturbide and others in Mexico thinking that if the Bourbons lose all control in Spain, what would that mean for them? It would mean near ruin for those who had land, who depended on favors from whoever was in power, right? So what would that mean to their haciendas and their land holdings? They were pretty concerned. So an idea arose that in the case that if Mexico became independent or autonomous and Ferdinand VII were deposed, he could become king of Mexico. Right? Woohoo! All right, well, that, you know, it seems that Iturbide and Guerrero actually were both communicating with each other, and they had some sort of relationship. Iturbide was convinced that independence for Mexico was the only way to protect the country from the radical liberal tide that was happening in Spain. So he decided to become the leader of the independence movement. But in order to do that, of course, he needed to put together a very unlikely coalition of Mexican liberal insurgents, landed nobility, and the church. So he sat down and he wrote what is called the Plan of Iguala, which held itself up on three guarantees. The first one, freedom from Spain. The second one, religion, with the Roman Catholicism being the only accepted religion in the new country. And the third being union, with all the inhabitants of Mexico to be regarded as equals. And in that manner, he was paving the road to gaining the support of the most powerful factions, the insurgents, the clergy, and the Spaniards. And in this plan, a monarchy was ensured, thus assuring the support of the royalists as well. Iturbide held a series of negotiations with Guerrero, and he made a number of demonstrations of his intentions to form an independent Mexico. Then he offered Guerrero a full pardon if he surrendered. Now, Guerrero rejected the pardon, but he agreed to meet with Iturbide to discuss the independence of Mexico. And that meeting is now referred to as the embrace of Acatempan, after the locale in which they agreed to implement the plan. Iturbide, Guerrero, and another insurgent leader, Guadalupe Victoria, announced the plan on the 24th of February, 1821, and on March 1st, 1821, Iturbide was proclaimed the head of the army of the three guarantees, with Guerrero fully supporting him and recognizing him as his leader. Now, this was a crazy, nutty plan, wouldn't you think? I mean, essentially the idea was to bring Ferdinand VII to Mexico City to rule. And if he didn't come to Mexico, another member of the Bourbon royal family would be chosen to rule there. And if no European ruler would come to rule Mexico, then the nation would have a right to elect a ruler by its own people. Now, both the sitting viceroy and Ferdinand VII, they probably looked at him and said, "What the heck? Who are you?" They rejected the plan of Iguala, and the Spanish Parliament sent a new viceroy named, get this, Juan O'Donoghue, to Mexico. When O'Donoghue arrived, he witnessed a nation that was on the brink of achieving independence, and he knew that its consummation just couldn't be stopped. So Iturbide met with O'Donoghue and hastily negotiated a treaty called, remember the name, Treaty of Cordoba. Now, it was similar to the plan of Iguala. The document tried to guarantee an independent monarchy for New Spain under the Bourbon dynasty, and the successor state would invite Ferdinand VII to rule as emperor or, in default, his brother Don Carlos. If both refused, a suitable monarch would be searched for among the various European royal houses, and in the meantime, a regency would replace the viceroy. All existing laws, including the 1812 Constitution, would remain in force until a new constitution for Mexico was written. Then a key element was added at O'Donoghue's suggestion. If Spain refused its right to appoint a regent for the Mexican Empire, the Mexican Congress would have freedom to elect whoever it deemed worthy as emperor. Then, to show the military might of the alliance, Iturbide coordinated with the insurgent commanders in the province and the royalists, and basically marched into Mexico City on the 27th of September, his own birthday, with the army of the three guarantees. And the army was received by a jubilant populace who had erected arches of triumph and decorated houses and themselves with the tricolor red, white, and green of the army. And then cries of Viva Iturbide were heard on the first day. And the next day, Mexico was declared an independent empire. So in much less than a year, Iturbide had bloodlessly achieved what 11 years of bloody war couldn't do. When the throne of Mexico wasn't taken up by one of the royals from Europe, Iturbide was eventually coronated the Emperor of Mexico. Now, that didn't sit right with many people, including Congress. Mexico was going to be squeezed by its trading partners because nobody was going to deal with the regime for fear of reprisals from the Bourbon royal families. And then his old enemies started to team up on him. Several prominent politicians and military leaders, many of whom had supported him, turned against Iturbide for having made a mockery of the national representation. Among those were insurgents like Guerrero and Nicolas Bravo and Guadalupe Victoria. So, opposition groups began to form, and in the end, Iturbide was banished and exiled. So, on May 11th, 1823, the ex-emperor boarded the British ship Rawlings en route to Italy. He was asked by some coalition of Catholic nations to help in a campaign to reconquer Mexico for Spain, but he declined. And then the Spanish pressured the Italians to expel Iturbide, and he and his family ended up moving to England, where he published his autobiography. And while he was there, the Mexican Congress declared him a traitor outside of the law and to be killed if he ever returned to Mexico. Unfortunately, Iturbide was unaware of this penalty, and he was asked by many people if he would please come back because after his departure, Mexico was in a pretty bad situation. There were reports of further Spanish attempts to retake it, and so he offered his services to Mexico City and returned on July the 14th, 1824, accompanied by his wife and his 2 children and a chaplain. And he landed at the port of Soto de la Marina on the coast of Nuevo Santander. They were initially greeted enthusiastically, but soon, unfortunately, they were arrested. He was held on trial at a local legislature and sentenced to death. Well, of course he was. When a local priest administered the last rites, Iturbide said, "Mexicans, in the very act of my death, I recommend to you the love of the fatherland and the observance to our religion, for it shall lead you to glory. I die having come here to help you, and I die merrily, for I die amongst you. I die with honor, not as a traitor. I do not leave this stain on my children and my legacy. I am not a traitor, no." He was executed by firing squad, July 19th, 1824. 3 bullets hit him, 1 which delivered the fatal blow. So that, my friends, is the long and short of it. The story of chilies and nogada. I mean, the story of Agustin Iturbide, the first emperor of Mexico. And of course, we know what happened to the second emperor of Mexico, some 40 years later. That's right, a firing squad. Who knew? All right, I think that's enough. Let's get to the interview. Now, every once in a while, I get an email or a call from a listener or a friend who's coming to Vallarta for a day on a cruise ship, and they want to know what to do. We've talked about that before. Other times I get emails from people who want to take a day trip and get out of town, and they're looking for some transportation. So they ask me, "Barry, should I rent a car?" And you know how I feel about renting cars, right? I tell them no. And I get them in touch with my friend Astrid Van Dam. JR introduced me to Astrid on my first trip with microphones, and I actually interviewed her very briefly in a show that I did way back when over in Plaza Romy. Back then, after I got done with that interview, I knew that I really needed to get back and to see her so that we all could take a deeper dive into the services that she provides, which are many, as you're going to find out. Now, I want to give you a heads up here because her office is, well, let's just say that she has like a shared space with, like, I don't know, I think it's like a real estate office or something like that behind where she sits. There's this person's desk. It was right there. So I've done my best to minimize the voices in the background, and I think I did a pretty good job. But I just want to warn you guys that you're going to hear someone blabbing in the background. I couldn't wait till she stopped. I think she finally stopped. I don't know. Anyway, you're going to be able to hear her just fine. Let's go right now to Plaza Romy on Lazaro Cardenas, and let's meet someone that you need to know when you visit Vallarta. Her name is Astrid Van Dam of Superior Tours Vallarta. Astrid, thanks for inviting me to your place.
No, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your path to Puerto Vallarta?
It's kind of like many people have. The first time here for the holiday, that was in 1998. And I just really liked it. It felt like coming home. By that time, there was still a charter company flying directly out of Amsterdam, where I'm originally from, to Puerto Vallarta. And it felt like coming home. The weather, the food, the people, everything made a good combination. And I was still young at that time, so I was like, okay, maybe I want to go there for maybe 6 months or something, learn Spanish. So I decided to quit my job, basically, in Holland, and start working right here in a hotel. And 20 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, but you're not working in a hotel. So.
Not anymore. No, that was my original career. I studied hotel management back in Holland. So that was the most logical part for me to work in a hotel. By that time, needless to say, I didn't speak any Spanish, so it was kind of difficult. And there were so many Dutch tourists by that time. For the people that are here a longer time already, they probably remember in the hotels like Playa Los Arcos, San Marino, and also the hotel where I worked, that was the Playa de Oro Hotel. It was packed with Dutch people. So the hotels, they loved it when a Dutch girl was working there because, well, the Dutch, they usually manage well with English. But still, they were happy that some Dutch girl could do some translation if necessary. So that's why I started to work at the first place.
Okay, and then from there, what happened?
Well, it's a very interesting story, actually. Then I got to know more people, other Dutchies that lived here. I got to know the owner of a former bar called Bar Amsterdam, which is actually right in front of my office right now. But the bar's gone a long time, but the building is still there.
Oh, okay.
And we set up a bar crawl tour. That was the first bar crawl tour in Puerto Vallarta. We had a big success with that tour. We didn't only focus on the Dutch, but we also had many Americans and Canadians on those days, bringing people out of Nuevo Vallarta mainly, going to the bars right here, like the Roxy Bar, like the Legend, doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. The Mariachi Loco, also gone. And Bar Amsterdam, of course. That was the Dutch bar. And then I got to know more people that worked for a Dutch tour operator coming here, and they suddenly asked me in the middle of the night, could you do a tour with us tomorrow as a guide going to San Blas? Because the guides that they had, they got sick, unfortunately, that day. So, well, I was basically the only Dutch-speaking person probably in Puerto Vallarta available. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I've been to San Blas before, so I can do it, but I'm not a guide. And he said, don't worry, we will take somebody with you. You'll be with the driver and a licensed guide, and you just make sure that the people have a good time. So that's what I did. We went the whole day to San Blas. We had a great day. We actually had a journalist on board that day from one big newspaper in Holland, and he wrote a wonderful article about this tour. So the tour operator back in Holland, they offered me a job as a guide. So that's how I said goodbye little by little to the bars and to the hotels and start working as a guide.
Aha.
That's right.
All right.
So a long time ago.
Yeah. All right. So then that developed obviously into something else. You probably started getting some ideas.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, honestly, to work as a guide right here, you have to have a guide license. So by that time, there was an officially licensed guide with me. But then I was like, I probably want to stay longer than the time I'm here. So I decided to go to the University of Guadalajara, study there and get my guide license right there, which I did. So I could guide my own tours. And the same tour operator then, little by little, offered me a job as a guide, guiding through tours throughout the whole country. Not only even Mexico, but also Guatemala, Honduras, and
Wow.
Belize. So basically, from that time on, for over 10 years, I guided tours throughout the whole Mexico. It was a great opportunity to get to know the country really well. Been guiding hundreds of tours: Mexico City, Copper Canyon, Yucatan, Oaxaca, Chiapas, you name it. And not only in Mexico, also Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, which was absolutely a fantastic time. I really loved it.
Wow.
It was just fantastic. Unfortunately, then I'm talking around, or making a big step right now in time. That's when the swine flu breakout was, and unfortunately the Dutch company decided not longer to offer Mexico anymore as in the package.
Really?
So I lost my job basically.
Wow.
Yes, that
What
was
a
it.
bummer. The swine flu
Right,
killed
yes,
it. And the swine flu was a dud. It didn't even happen.
In Puerto Vallarta, there was nothing at all.
No, it was, yeah, lovely,
The
right?
businesses were closed, some
Oh, my
of them
God.
for a few days and everything, and everybody was scared, and people knew it was like, okay, this is not that big, but it was a whole scandal in the whole world, basically. Bad luck was that back in Holland, they call it the Mexican flu, so even less Dutchies wanted to come to Puerto Vallarta, to whole Mexico. So there was basically nobody wanted to come to Mexico anymore out of Europe. So that's why little by little I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do? I couldn't survive without a job, of course, and that's when I basically started my own company in 2007, 2008 is when I started my own company, which you are right now here in Superior Tours Vallarta. By that time, I had already many friends and people like asking me, what do I do when I go to Chiapas? How can I go to Oaxaca? What do you recommend me in Cancun and things like that? So that's why, okay, maybe, this is the time for me to start my own company. Mm-hmm. People always say that, when you start a company in crisis, then you have the most chance to survive after the crisis, right? And, over 10 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's
and
right.
Going strong.
Yes, yeah, no complaints. Absolutely not. No, that's right. The company has grown pretty fast.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Superior Tours. I know that you offer tours just about everywhere from Puerto Vallarta, yes?
That's right, yes.
I mean, do you get yourself involved in air flight as well?
Absolutely, yes, we do, yes. Actually, we started with our weekends to Guadalajara, the shopping weekends. That's how we started, basically. That's how I started my company.
Uh-huh.
I just put an ad in the local newspaper, let's go shopping in Guadalajara. For Christmas, people love the idea, so that's how I basically started. Mm-hmm. And then people asked to offer me, what else can you offer? Well, with all the experience I had with guiding tours all over, I said, okay, well, you know what, we can go to Mexico City. So then we took a group to Mexico City. And then little by little, I start to offer, for me, for the first time internationally to the people mainly from the US and Canada, these kinds of tours as a guide. It became a little bit bigger than that, indeed. That's when in 2010 I started to open the office right here in Old Town, right in the heart of Old Town, in Plaza Romy. And then I wanted to offer a little bit more there. So I started to work with the guys that I already knew that were basically my ex-colleagues of the company that I work with, who lived in Chiapas, who lived in Mexico City, who lived in Guadalajara and things like that. So I said, you know what if I make the package and you be the guide, and I will handle all the things like the reservations of the hotels, the transportation and things like that. So that's when we started to offer little by little the tours to other parts of Mexico, which we still do. For which we set dates for people. So we say, okay, well, let's go to Copper Canyon the 10th of February. But also we customize, because especially the last few years, we can basically say that the tourism is changing. People, they like to travel less in groups and just like to go with their own group of friends. For example, the friends of their condominium, their family or whatever. And we customize the tour for them completely to basically any part of Mexico. So that's what we actually do most. Then also a big part of our company is the transportation. At this moment we have a fleet of 10 vehicles. We have another office which is not open for the public close to the airport. Because also during our tours we started to notice that the people were kind of annoyed by the timeshare vendors at the airport.
Yeah. Just
people
kind of annoyed?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say it, in nice words. But they thought they were going in transportation, and before they knew, they were already suddenly in a timeshare presentation. So I was like, there should be something doable about that one, right?
Yeah.
Some people were still afraid to take taxis, although we know that Puerto Vallarta is a really safe place. But they're like, I just prefer that there's a driver waiting for me that I know he knows where the area is, that speaks English, that can bring me right to the hotel or to the restaurant where I want to go and everything. So that's why we start to offer also the private transportation, which honestly right now is the biggest part of our company, the transportation part. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So if somebody were to come in, let's say, and come from a cruise ship. What kind of, we know that, cruise lines are inflating their tours and all that other stuff.
Yes.
So what kind of tour packages do you offer for somebody who's here for just the day, who's just here for maybe 8 hours?
8 hours, yeah. It depends a little bit if they've been here already before or not. If it's this the first time, we honestly recommend like a city tour. Also for that, for this group, which is huge asset of our company, also the cruise lines. Not the cruise lines itself, but the people that find us directly, mainly through TripAdvisor, for example, through JR sites, through anybody that recommends us. We customize the tour directly with the people. So we ask them what they want to see. For example, if we have a teacher in the group and he said like, I would really like to see a Mexican school, we'll bring him to a Mexican school, right? We're not the typical tour that brings them to the jewelry stores and then to another kind of factory or something.
Right. Your guides aren't selling anything.
No, exactly. Actually, they're not even allowed unless the people ask. Right? We want them to have the best possible experience in Puerto Vallarta and show them what they want to see. And obviously, we give them suggestions because they don't know what they want to see sometimes. So we give them suggestions to see the city. The Gringo Gulch is always really nice to see. Needless to say, everybody always wants to see the church. Right, a little bit right here. Sorry, that's the mangoes falling. Oh. A little bit right here for from the south side, the pier, a little bit of the jungle around the city, depending a little bit on how much time they have. We do recommend a minimum of 5 hours.
Okay.
But also the local markets, Pitial, a taco stand. Those are things that, honestly, we always recommend. People from the cruise ship, usually they're like a little bit less adventurous. Not that I want to do everything the same, but not everybody's like that, I want to try to say, but they're always like kind of focused on the itinerary of the tours or that the cruise ships offer.
Yeah.
Right? So we try, to convince them to do a little bit other things than that, because there is much more to see than the tours that are offered on the ship. Right? So we recommend them, to get their own group together. For example, we have vehicles of all sizes, like minivans to big buses. And then we customize it completely, and they get back to the ship with a completely different experience that they would do on a group tour of the ship. That's for sure.
Neat. Okay, so what would let's say a van? What would that cost for?
Depending
5
on
hours,
the size of the van, the smallest van would be a minivan in this case, which costs $40 an hour per van. Mm-hmm. That can take up to 7 people.
Oh, okay. So you divide that up. Wow, that's quite a.
Yes.
That is a big savings if you get like 7 people in that
definitely,
van.
And definitely compared to the tours of the cruise ships, we know their prices as well.
Yeah.
And those are usually the big 40, 45 passenger buses, right? Which that cannot even reach all the places that we do with our tours. Right, so it's a very nice way to see the real city, real Puerto Vallarta, right? If people have been here before, they're like, you know what, I want to see a little bit more because I already know the Malecon and things like that. We recommend them to bring to San Sebastian, for example, if they have enough time. San Pancho, the north side, if they like more the beaches, combined with Sayulita, Punta de Mita as possible. So we just ask them what they like, and then we customize any way they want to travel.
Great. So it's a great way to expand your horizon. If you're just here for a day and Puerto Vallarta, and maybe you've never been up this, to San Pancho, or maybe you've never been down south to Boca de Tamatlan, right? So great. And now that San Sebastian tour, You can actually turn them around in 8 hours, go up there and back?
Yes, it's possible, definitely. It's about an hour and a half drive. As you probably know, the drive is really scenic, so we do make some stops on the way to make some pictures. But it's possible to do it. I mean, if you have the time, it's nice to stay there for the night. But especially if you're here just for the day, or if your time is limited, it's absolutely possible to show the most highlights in a day. Not because I want to sell the tour, but I do recommend you to do it in a tour in that way because time is so limited. Mm-hmm. The guides, obviously, they know exactly where to bring the people, what to see, and it's just a different experience than walking around there yourself and might not see everything what's there to explore in San Sebastian.
Yeah, so you'll have a guide there, you guys. What a great idea. Okay, so that road to San Sebastian was having some trouble. Is it still a problem?
It's doable, absolutely. Actually, we've been there already a few times last week. There are some parts which are not really good, but it hardly takes more time than usual. Although in the rainy season, and I don't think it's going to take much longer before it's going to rain.
Coming now.
It might become a challenge again.
Right, yeah.
But we'll see
by that time.
the
rest of the road will go by then.
As soon as possible, that's for sure.
I know,
yes.
right? All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of your other specialty tours, maybe some of your other day tours. If somebody was interested in going to one of the Puebla Mágicas, one of the magic cities, let's say Tequila, for example.
Tequila, yes.
It's probably a pretty popular tour, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a long tour if you do it on a day. Tequila, we basically offer indeed as a day tour. We leave early in the morning, and we're going to see one or two of the distilleries right there. I don't really like to say tequila factory. Right there, it's the real stuff.
Yeah.
Right here in Puerto Vallarta, it's more like where the people show how they make tequila, but it's not the real stuff. Right there, it's the huge tequila distilleries like Sausa, like Herradura, you name it. There is plenty of choices right there, and most of them they offer really interesting tours. They offer the more easygoing tours where you walk in the distillery about 2 hours more or less, and you get to try the tequilas. But they also offer tours of about up to 6 hours where you also go into the fields. You see the gimador working. That's the one who gets the plants of the fields. Mm-hmm. Basically, you see the whole process from the plant to the glass. So that takes much longer than a few hours.
Right.
Where they also even show you, which combination you can make with certain types of food, all the different kinds of tequilas. That's really interesting. I do recommend you to visit Tequila. And if there's more time, even to stay in Tequila.
Okay, so let's talk about the accommodations in Tequila.
Yes.
Are they cool? Are they
yes,
nice places to be?
Yes, there's some really nice places. By far, my favorite would be the Cofradia, which is actually a tequila distillery. They have a hotel only since just over a year right now.
Ah, cool.
And there you stay in an actual barrel. It's like a huge barrel. You stay right in the fields, right? So you could not have a better tequila feeling than staying right there.
Tequila experience.
That's for
right
sure.
there. Wow. Okay. All right. So that's one of those tours.
Yes.
You were saying that one of your first ones was Guadalajara. Obviously, that probably is still around.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
You combine that with like Tlaquepaque or anything like that?
Absolutely, yes. The tour that we have to Guadalajara, actually, we have two different kind of tours.
Okay.
One is more focused on sightseeing, which is definitely the best choice for the first-timers. Then actually we visit the town of Tequila briefly on the way.
Oh, good. Okay.
And then indeed we visit Tlaquepaque to do some shopping. As you probably know, is some great art galleries right there, fantastic restaurants as well. You can see mariachi right there. It's just a nice area to walk around right there. And then, we stayed 2 nights in Guadalajara. It's a 3-day tour of completely, basically packed with sightseeing. And the following day, the guides make a walking tour through the historic district of Guadalajara. which is absolutely a highlight of this tour, of course, with all the murals that we can see in the government buildings. The cathedral, of course, all the plazas that they have. There's so many architecture right there. The tour takes about 3 hours, the walking tour, but if you want to see everything, you can walk days if you like to, right? But we have to limit it also, right? And then on our sightseeing tour in the afternoon, there's an optional tour which is included to visit Chapala Lake, the largest lake of Mexico. And we visit the towns Chapala, of course, and Ajijic, which is really well known by expats as well to live there, especially in the winters. Yeah, right. So those ones those little villages we show as well, right there. And then the following day on Sunday, because it's again a full day tour, we visit also the archaeological site of Huachimontones. Fortunately, not too many people know about this site, but it is the largest archaeological site in the state of Jalisco. You can probably not compare it to Chichen Itza or Teotihuacan or something, the well-known sites all over the world, basically. But Huachimontones is getting there. You can see the ball court right there. Yeah. You can see round pyramids right there. And, the guide, needless to say, will give all explanation about this site as well.
Right. And he might even teach you how to pronounce it, too.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. It's not easy, but you will get there. Yes, maybe you need a tequila or two to pronounce it well.
Yeah, okay. So that is your second of, those are 3-day tours.
That's a 3-day tours. The other tour to Guadalajara is more focused on shopping. Which is usually more booked by the people that already are a little bit familiar with Guadalajara. But they like it that we take them to all the shopping areas, again to Tlaquepaque, but also to the Tonalá market on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And the shopping areas in the downtown part of Guadalajara and Zapopan. So basically then it's like filling up the bus with everything that you see around you. You cannot believe how the bus comes back on Sundays, packed with, furniture, shoes, CDs, everything in between. That's right.
Tell us a little bit about the Tonalá market. What is that like?
The Tonalá market is absolutely crazy. I love it. It's always on Thursdays and Sundays. Okay. Especially before the holidays in December. That is my favorite part of the year because they have lots of Christmas decoration right there. It's packed all the time, the whole year round. But especially for the people that like to buy furniture, it's not only the market because the stores right behind the market, they sell, basically the same things. And you buy it basically by the people that make it. So the prices are incredibly low. You cannot compare it to the prices right here in Puerto Vallarta. So, for example, if you want to decorate a condo or something, then Tonalá is by far the best choice to go to decorate your condo on a economical way, but nicely decorated.
What's your price point on those tours?
Those tours for this year, we didn't have any changes in prices for the last few years. We had them running for $249 US per person based on double occupancy. For the 3 days.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Yes, that's right.
Great.
Including the hotel, including the breakfast, including the entrance fees. So that's why people like to go on a tour because going by themselves, it will not very likely be cheaper than this. Plus, they have, obviously, the bus with them, so they can bring basically anything they like back on the bus, as long as it fits through the doors.
And they have a tour guide.
And there's a tour guide, of
right.
course, yes, and the driver. So it's also a nice day to make new friends, of course. On the overnight tours, it's not very common that the people join us that are here only for the week because of a lack of time. But those are mainly visited by the snowbirds. The people stay here for a month up to 3 months or something, that like to have a little escape from Puerto Vallarta.
Sure. Okay. What would you say is your most popular tour that you have?
The Guadalajara tour is probably the most popular tour because it goes every week. In the winter, that is. After that, this year, by far, it was the Copper Canyon, which is, needless to say, a longer tour. That's a week long. This year, we had 8 groups traveling to Copper Canyon.
You fly there?
Yes. We fly there or we drive there by our own vehicle and we fly back We did it in the past, driving back, go there and back, but it basically takes 2 days to drive there, so that's already like 4 days.
A little tough on you tourists.
That's right. Yes.
All right, and so that Copper Canyon tour, that's still going strong. It's a big,
Yes.
it's a big draw.
Oh yes. It's it's an area which is about 4 times bigger than the Grand Canyon in the U.S., and it's not so touristic as the Grand Canyon in the U.S. It's more laid back. The
More
indigenous
Mexican,
people,
more laid back, yeah,
yes, the
yeah.
indigenous people are really amazing. The Tarahumara indigenous people. So the guides, they tell a lot about these people. We visit their families. We see how they live. Many of them, they live actually in caves.
Really?
So that is a part of Mexico that not too many people expect to see when they are only familiar with Puerto Vallarta.
Is it fairly cheap to fly inside Mexico, inner city?
Honestly, not. No, I think within the U.S. or within Canada, you have better options to fly more economical. There are more economical airlines and other less economical airlines. But if you buy the tickets in sale, you can get it really economically. For example, Interjet is going to have a sale very soon, in the next few days, very likely. Where the tickets are like 70% off. So if you're already familiar with the dates that you want to travel, that is the perfect days to buy the tickets.
Look for those deals.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so that Copper Canyon tour, what does that run?
That one was running this year for $1,099 US per person, based on double occupancy plus the flights. That's why we recommend always to book this tour way in advance, so we can get the tickets in the sales, so we can get good deals for the flights. But if the people wait a long time and book just probably a few days before the tour, then unfortunately we can never guarantee to have those good rates on the tickets.
Right, understood. What other tours do you give that are anything very unusual that you might want to mention?
The unusual tours is usually the customized tours.
The one that somebody else wants.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. For example, a few years ago.
I believe that they asked us to go there.
Right?
Oh, no.
Yes, we had a biologist, for example, that wanted to get to know the rabbit of the Nevada of Toluca, which is a volcano. Right? So, yeah, sure, we take them to that. And actually, we saw the rabbit. It's a very special species of rabbits.
Okay, really?
You know,
right.
so even those kinds of things, yes, we can do, no problem.
So I'm looking for, I'm in search of the lost, the lost ark. And you say, oh, sure, we'll take you there.
Sure,
right?
Exactly, yeah. So, those kinds of tours we don't really have on our website, because I don't think it's very likely that other people will want to buy a tour focused on the rabbit.
Yeah, that's not going to be repeated
right,
very often.
But it's just to say, we have no limits. Yes, we can basically customize any kind of travel, transportation, and tour.
Okay, excellent. And then when you say something like that, you're talking about maybe we're getting in a van and it's $40 an hour, and
that's right. We have in that case our local guides working right there. We have a group of fantastic guides living also in Mexico City, for example, in Chiapas. So, in order to keep the prices lower, we just contract our guides right there.
Right.
Basically, they are with superior tour guides, but local guides from the areas from there. And obviously, they know the areas even better than a guide traveling from here, for example.
It's a better experience.
That's right, definitely.
Cool. Let's take a quick little right-hand turn and ask you a couple things about Vallarta. I always ask people what their favorite places to eat are.
All right.
And so let's start with your breakfast, and we'll go to lunch and dinner. How's that?
Okay, sure, absolutely, yes. Well, breakfast is always nice to have on the beach. Any place is nice to have breakfast on the beach. Needless to say, La Palapa, for example, is just a wonderful place to have breakfast. I do recommend it always. For lunch and dinner, my personal favorite would be probably the Barracuda restaurant right next to the Buenaventura Hotel. If you haven't tried their molcajete, you definitely missed something. I think it's the best molcajete of all Vallarta, the one mixed with arrachera and shrimp. I'm getting hungry right now.
I know, me too.
It's one of my favorites by far.
Okay.
Right, you can see the sunset and everything. Another favorite of mine is definitely La Traviata on the hill on the Cinco de Diciembre area.
Yeah.
Very nice view, Italian restaurant. And Barcelona Tapas is definitely also one of my favorites. And I cannot skip the restaurant Hacienda Alemana. I'm guilty. I haven't been there for a while.
Yeah.
But that's definitely also one of my favorites. Also because, well, the owner, Michael, he was the one responsible for getting my first job right here in Puerto Vallarta in 99. So I always grateful for that. And, well, it's comfort European food, of course.
Yeah.
And then just around the corner, almost here, Bravo's restaurant is everybody's favorite, I guess. And then for a quick lunch, I just have to cross the street, go to Dianitas.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You have
Right.
an excellent meal for like 60 pesos. And you cannot get, you cannot get in trouble with the meal of them.
No, you can't. Yeah, they do a great job there.
Right? Absolutely.
Fantastic. What kind of advice would you give to a first-time visitor other than to make sure that you contact Superior Tours?
Well, explore. I mean, it's nice to go on the tours. Definitely, I do recommend it if you go on a tour to do it in the first few days, because, well, they might see some areas that they want to go back to later, and it's always a shame to hear at the end, "Oh, I didn't know it was there," or "I didn't know that was going on." You know, so I would recommend to do definitely a tour on the first days. The guides right here in Puerto Vallarta are local guides, so they can give also their recommendations of places to go and not to go. Unfortunately, there are some tourist traps around so that the people know, you know, if they like it, no problem, but that some things are really focused on only tourists, and it's honestly really nice to explore much more than that, right?
Yeah, no
Try
kidding.
the taco places. You know, if you see other people right there, try it. You know, don't stay to the most well-known chains, which unfortunately people sometimes tend to do. But explore and try around.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, it's always great to try something new. It might be your new favorite. You never know. It's like,
Exactly. Yes,
"Oh,
I
this
always
is my
say to
favorite
the
place."
people that arrive here, you know, we have every chain here except Taco Bell, thank God. But don't stay only because sometimes I drive myself as well. The vans when we have people arriving at the airport, I love to drive. You know, and I tell them all about Puerto Vallarta in the short time they're with me in the van. For example, if they go from the airport to the Hyatt, and they say like, "Oh, look, it's Domino's. Oh, it's Subway. Oh, look, it's Office Depot." And like, yeah, but we have other things as well, right? And then I try to focus a little bit more on the locals.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. You have had so many tours over this period of time. Is there one one client that stood out other than your guy looking for the rabbit that really stood out and just was so unusual or anything like that?
Well, honestly, not even one tour is the same. That's kind of difficult to say. Unfortunately, there is sometimes people not feeling well on a tour. You know, we travel in different areas of Mexico with high altitudes, different climates. People they're not always prepared for that. So, you know, sometimes you have to arrange a doctor, which is, you know, the things that you never hope that's going to happen, but unfortunately it happens once in a while. But people are, you know, they are kind of prepared, right? Mm-hmm. For example, we have a fantastic group of friends traveling with us every year who live in Bucerias. You know, and every year they just give us a hint like, you know, we might want to travel to Querétaro this year and see the wineries, you know, and so we arrange that completely. And sometimes we bring them to completely new areas for us as well, right? I travel every state of Mexico. There's not too many secrets anymore for me in Mexico, but sometimes things can happen, right? For example, the state of Chiapas, in our last tours of Chiapas, there were blockades of the well, one part of the teachers, other parts of the zapatistas. So the guide called me. He said, do you, authorize me to leave at 6 a.m.? The driver, he is from here. He can take us through another path through the mountains, and we will get to our final destination. I said, you know what? You know it better than me, the current situation. As long as everybody is safe and everybody is okay, let's do it. So the most people, they were like really happy with it because they saw things they would never see on their tour. Other people, honestly, were not too happy about it also, right? But that is always, traveling in Mexico can be a challenge. And it is honestly not for everybody also, So we do try to prepare the people with those kinds of information before each tour, you are in different states, you are in different places. Maybe there's no four-season kind of hotels in other states. So be prepared to see other things that you might not used to see. And then 99% of the people are really, really happy. And that's probably the reason why we have so many repeat customers.
Mm-hmm. Good. Is there something that we've forgotten? Is there something that we need to cover while we're having this discussion?
Well, no, not really. Just inform yourself. We are not only limited to tours. We also give advice of people traveling in Mexico. We can help with flights, with bus tickets, for example, that people don't always realize. And those are the same cost if you would book it directly with the bus company, for example. But we can give you better advices because sometimes people make their own itinerary. And we're like, okay, you might want to try this because of cost, but also because of times. Just to give you an example, we just had last week people traveling and they had their own map and they say, we're just traveling from San Cristobal to Palenque, which is only 200 kilometers, so probably it takes us about 2 or 3 hours to get there. But that's a road with 431 topes, speed bumps, right? So that takes 6 to 7 hours, right?
Gosh.
So those are the kinds of things because of all the experience, traveling through whole Mexico. It's like just come in and ask us for advice, and we can give you some advice. We can reserve you the hotels if you would like to book it on your own, no problem. But we would just want to make sure that you have the best possible experience, not only in Puerto Vallarta but in whole Mexico.
Excellent. So, and not only that, but you can call here and they speak English, so you can't do that when you're calling a Mexican bus station. You're not going to find anybody speaking English at those stations.
That's right, yes.
To sell you a ticket. It's not going to happen. So why not do it through Astrid? How do people find you?
They can find us always right here in Plaza Romy. Now that the season is slowing a little bit down, we are only here from Monday to Friday. Back in high season, we'll be again here also on Saturdays from 9 to 5. They can reach us by phone, of course. Our local phone number is 222-0024. But the best way is always by email. Our general email is info@superiortoursvallarta.com. And from there on, we always see who is the person in charge to answer those kinds of questions.
With that in mind, during the off season, you're here Monday through Friday. What about the tours? Are they limited as far as what you give, or you're
No,
open
the
for
tours
business?
are actually our other office is open 7 days a week, so people can reach us 7 days a week also if they suddenly need transportation or something. No, the tours they go on every day.
Okay,
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool. I'll have links to all that in the show notes for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show, and you'll find it at www.puertovallartatravelshow.com. And Astrid, thank you for inviting me to Superior Tours Vallarta.
Thank you. All right, then let's travel.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Astrid. She was so good. Now, I could not believe that some of the trips and tours that she was talking about are just so reasonable, like that 3-day package where you go and you shop in Guadalajara. What a bargain. I mean, you can't stay at home that cheap. And then how about sleeping in a tequila barrel, you guys? I wonder, do you wake up with a buzz, or does it smell like, do you reek like tequila when you walk out of that place? I don't know. You're going to find out. Why don't you go find out? And how about the deal with the van picking you up at the cruise ship, right? Just a couple of people together, and you got a great deal. Customized, too, so it's brilliant. Anyway, I have all of her contact information in the show notes, as well as pictures and links and all that stuff. I got links to her website where you can look over all of the great tours that she has. There's just so many there. And when you get a hold of her, just let her know that JR sent you. Okay? Now, I think that should do it for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and your suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com. That's JR's website, and reserve your tour right through him, right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying, thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were going to use someone else, so just do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, he has his maps, he has his DIY tours, he has his revitalized happy hour board right there on his site, and more. And I have links to all of those on my site in my show notes. But just go to vallartainfo.com and check him out. All right. Now, once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time and subscribe. Give me a good review on iTunes if you would. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, I made it easy for you to do just that with each episode I create. But if you haven't been to my website, you really need to have a look there. I have links to the places that we talk about. I've got interesting pictures and more right there in my blog posts and in the show notes for each episode of the shows that I create. Check them out if you haven't already, okay? All right. And thank you, Astrid Van Dam of Superior Tours Vallarta. You are fantastic. Wow, what an incredible woman. Thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us all that great information. You can get all those links to all of her stuff in the show notes for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show, so make sure you do. And listen, thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler, signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino, perno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río, cuando todo está en calma, pronto cae la noche, me brillas Puerto Vallarta, samba de Puerto Vallarta.